I think just about the same. Obviously, she's quite outstanding. It occurred to me that just while they warm up, it might be an idea to put into context where she is, at least where we think she is, in relation to the future of the women's game, assuming that ahead of the field are the two rather older girls, Lindsay Davenport and Shonda Rubin, two 20-year-olds. Rubin wasn't able to play here because she's injured. You've then got the sort of gym slip kids. 15-year-old Anna Kournikova of Russia, and the 16-year-old black American girl Venus Williams, and you've got Martina Hingis, who, as we've been saying, isn't 16 till the end of this month. One word, incidentally, about Kournikova, the Russian, because there's been a lot written about her as well. I didn't realize until yesterday that her coach from 6 years of age in Moscow was Viktor Rubinov, the husband of Olga Morozova. And Victor and Olga are very much involved in the business of trying to find some young women players in Britain. They live in Bisham, right outside Bisham Abbey. And Viktor Rubinov was telling me that he's recently been trawling the schools in the Marlow and Maidenhead district, going to headmasters and saying, look, can I come in and see if you've got any athletes who might make tennis players? And he has actually put together a squad that way who are going to be working at Bisham Abbey, and I think that's a start, isn't it? Funny that we have to have Russians to show us how to do it.
Olga believes in professionalism, always has, and frankly, I think with her ambitions and some changes in the English school system, she can begin to get the results that I think she deserves as national head coach. Hingis, something special this week. In fact, her best tennis ever, but talent that even McEnroe has shown respect for on American television. Martina Hingis, more than being a shot maker a la Kournikova or Philippus, is a playmaker. Playing with a small person's mentality toward the game, she knows she must maneuver her way to championships. And my word, does she have the eye-hand talent to do so, Jerry.
Her personality is pert and poised, and just occasionally petulant.
But not much petulance this week.
But it's not a bad sign, that, is it? In a 15-year-old, you don't want them to be too demure and deferential, do you?
Well, speaking with Martina Hingis' agent, Damir Karatic, yesterday on the bus on the way back to the hotel, he said, you know, she's starting to play smart tennis again. And I said, well, it's not just smart. She's not pouting as much, and it's great fun to see that, and I think it's helping her mentally. He said, well, certainly she's always had the ability to play smart, being the tiny 10-year-old against the 14-year-old big girls.
But in the tennis champion, there has to be spite somewhere, doesn't there?
There has to be a lot of purpose, a lot of what I call obsessive hunger. Steffi has it. Hingis, yet to prove it to us. But I like the fact that she's expressive, so if you have to have an answer to your question, yes, it's good that she occasionally throws her racket gently in no one's direction.
And then she smiles and says, Mum won't be pleased with that. That always gets done in the press room. Right, here we go. Let's see how good Hingis is. Well, she's going to get clobbered if she plays the ball at all short to the Graf forehand. She's got lovely natural timing, has Hingis.
Love 30.
Tracy Austin, former champion here, likens Hingis' effortlessness to Goolagong. And Steffi, well warned about this lady's form, seems to be rising to the occasion already.
Go! 15-40.
I don't know if there's just a few spots of rain on the court. It looks as if there might be, and that Graf's a little uneasy about that. In the umpire's chair, the decision, well, the decision doesn't entirely rest with her. Out come the officials. Spots of rain can make it slippery. In the umpire's chair is Donna Butler from Sydney, Australia.
Just want to hang out here for just a minute.
Brian Early.
Well, they'd only played
It's slick right now.
4 points, was it? There are spits of rain. The crowd don't understand because they haven't been down there. They don't know that it gets slippery so quickly.
Go ahead back on because it's not gonna make the court completely soaked. But I'm not gonna ask him to sit here for 10 minutes either. So play it by ear.
That seems to be fairly sensible, doesn't it? Let's stay out here for a bit and see whether it really does rain or not. No doubt they've been in touch with the local meteorologist. That would be the drill. They do that at everywhere else. So presumably they've been told that there might be some spits of rain, but imminently at least there's no storm.
And the skyline, just about 5 miles to the horizon, is now enshrouded in mist. Perhaps the end of Hurricane Fran coming through. Steffi wouldn't want to risk one fiber of her grade A body in a slippery, on a slippery surface.
It's no more fun for me than it is for you.
I think that's the voice of the referee, Brian Early, feeling very much on the spot. The crowd wanting the players to come out, as they did when Mooster and Agassi were delayed by a similar spitting down.
30-40.
I thought that's the kind of point that Graf should not get herself too involved in.
Deuce.
This lady knows how to maneuver very well.
Oh, she missed. But that was incredibly grown-up play there by Hingis, just staying in that point, with Graf giving it the most terrific sock.
Trying to just break down that forehand of Hingis's.
I would say without any question that Martina Hingis has won an important psychological battle there. 1-love she leads at the start. Well, you'll hate to have to tell you this because that was an electrifying opening game, but while you were away, the umpire just announced the play suspended. There was so much wrapped up in those few points there. Graf coming out like a schoolmarm, making it obvious that her intention was she was going to stand no nonsense whatever from any little upstart. And then Hingis sort of standing there and not giving an inch, and in the end winning the game. And it said so much about Hingis, a little bit about Graf. You know, if you stand up to somebody who's trying to boss you around, sometimes they get uneasy.
Exactly, and a couple of unforced errors at the end of 2 points in the end of the game there from Graf, showing just that. The court becoming shiny now, and frankly, the New York City skyline has disappeared completely.
And the lights are on. You can, through the lights, you can see this is real rain. The good news is this, that they can make a hard court like this playable fairly promptly. They get out noisy hot air blowers. They look like vacuum cleaners, and they have a whole team. It's very well organised. We haven't seen it this year, mercifully. And so we shall just have to see how long this is going to last.
For me, the meat in this game where Hingis did not give an inch, hanging inside the baseline almost against Graf's bludgeoning power, was the fact that Hingis is able to go both ways on her ground strokes. She can go down the line on her backhand, she can go cross-court, she can go down the line on her forehand, she can go cross-court. And this allows Martina Hingis to change the direction of the ball when things aren't going well, or when she simply wants to access that Graf backhand when in trouble. And boy, oh boy, it's a great treat to see Martina Hingis's mind at work as she does choose to change the direction of the play.
It occurs to me to say that Providence has conspired really to play a scurvy trick on Hingis, because she got herself ready for the match. She went out and she played that mountainous first game to win it from love 40 down. Now she's got to go off, and now what she's going to do, how's she going to react to this? Because Graf's been in this situation time and time again.
Well, she launched a few donkey drop serves into play in the early points and promptly saw them punished. If Martina Hingis does come out again, I think she'll be putting in a few more donkey drop serves and having to survive all over again the sort of bludgeoning efforts of Steffi, whom, it must be said, after her loss to Hingis in Rome, was, in no other words, absolutely distraught, Gerald.
Yeah, mind you, on clay, because it's so slow, you can imagine Hingis with those lovely ground shots, which technically look absolutely perfect.
And effortless,
yeah.
Yes.
That on clay, you could see it more. This is a much quicker court. Just while we've got you here, and while we're just waiting to reassess what the weather forecast is and what's likely to happen, Hingis's serve, to me, that's the shot that isn't world class.
It's what separates her from being #1 in the world, quite simply, and it won't show up on first serves nearly as much as second. We've seen her in full flow against Sanchez Vicario in the third set, 80% first serves and pretty good pace, and Novotna up over 100 miles an hour with her own first serve Hingis there. Nonetheless, that second serve, but with the action that she has, I don't see it landing very deep in the court most times.
The difficulty, it always seems to me, with somebody at 15 who has already achieved so much, you know, here she is knocking on the door of the top 10, is that having got this far, you'd be reluctant, wouldn't you, to say, well, okay, I'm going to spend a year now and I'm going to lose a lot of matches, but I'm going to find a serve from somewhere.
It's the kind of improvement that Lendl made between 1984 when he lost to McEnroe in the semis here, and 1985 when he beat McEnroe in the finals. Lendl said, I have to have a backhand cross-court pass to beat McEnroe because he's hanging on my down-the-line pass every time, and he's beaten me last year. Well, it's that kind of adaptation. Wilander did it to Lendl in '88, mixing that serve and volley play in against the larger Czech to very sagely come away with a 5-set victory. Martina Hingis needs to not only fine-tune her effort, her assault to #1, but perhaps, as you're right, get a wholehearted effort at a new stroke on the serve.
Well, there we are then. We're all up for the party, everybody ready, and now sheltering from the rain, umbrellas up. It looks a dismal sight. Everybody's frustrated. Just imagine what Steffi Graf and Martina Hingis must feel.
Champion Steffi Graf, well, she said all along that with her father's court case going on, that she has been focusing on what's going on court. Today, she has to focus on Martina Hingis and wonder what this young Swiss prodigy has got ready for her in this women's semi-final. Well, as you heard, there was a rain delay, which meant that this match is now being played today. So let's go over to our commentary team for this match, Barbara Potter and Jerry Williams. And first of Well, as you heard, there was a rain delay, which meant that this match is now being played today. So let's go over to our commentary team for this match, Barbara Potter and Jerry Williams. And first of all, Jerry, I suppose we better ask you what the weather forecast is.
The weather forecast isn't terribly good. It's about 50-50 whether we can get through the day. I think most of the journos here over their Kafi and Danish would say that if we could get just this match over, at least we've all got something to write about or talk about or broadcast. I don't know, Barbara Potter, are you a local meteorologist of any expertise?
Of course not, but I will talk about it just for a moment because I do think it's going to hold off. We have a fairly strong wind, which means any little foggy spots are going to come through rather quickly, leave a little dumping of spitting, and move right along because it isn't a front full with rain. We're on the eastern end of it, and it should be well and away inland by tonight.
Now there's a girl who's got a great future in
1 minute.
in television weather programs. Here she is, the youngest semi-finalist at the US Open in 19 years, behind Andrea Jaeger and Jennifer Capriati. Andrea Jaeger, incidentally, is working just, what, 3-4 commentary boxes along from us, and we see her pert and cheerful and just as sunny as possible
A
every
very
day.
together lady now. I mean, there's no question that she's gotten over scars in her earlier career days.
It's wonderful. Yes, Graf has been beaten by Hingis, but that was on clay in the Italian Championship this year, and on clay the Graf forehand, her 2 killer shots, the forehand and the serve, are slowed down considerably, so I'm not quite sure what kind of pointer that is. Talking of
Ladies and
pointers,
gentlemen, resumption
incidentally,
of play.
the best television
leads 1
trailer
love,
I
first
have
set.
ever seen was the one game these two played last night. It was such a vivid thing. Out came Graf,
Time.
hit 3
Full
spanking
technique.
shots, and then Hingis suddenly started to tease her into rallies, and then the rains came, and ever since then we've all been thinking, gosh, if it's going to be like that in a match, then we're in for a mega match, as they say today.
Yes, sort of the mama cat coming out and pouncing quickly, but the kitten with the ball of yarn
That's
wrapping up
amazing
that
if there
first
aren't
game
people in
beautifully,
it.
hanging in on wide running forehands with some excellent loop shots.
Steffi Graf
Nonetheless,
to serve.
Graf power can dent the Hingis forehand. Let's see if she can do it today.
Love one.
First serve. Love 15.
Unfortunately for Martina Hingis, they don't have slow-mo replay cameras on the sidelines, but only on the baseline. That looked out, didn't it?
First serve.
This is the danger to Graf, that in trying to clobber Hingis, which is probably what she's got to do in essence, she might just miss a few, and then she can get edgy.
Exactly right. In fact, the bludgeoning has to happen with intelligence on Steffi's part. She does need to finish points off at the net regularly, if not often. Top spin drive backhand.
Game one.
1-game all first set. And you welcomed the topspin backhand from Graf like the arrival of a new meteor.
It's not a frequent occurrence. Steffi, having the advantage off of the serve, did well to hit that topspin drive and consolidate her advantage in the point there. 15-30 to game.
And Hingis, we think, has not got a good enough serve. That is for somebody aspiring to go to the very top of the game.
Love 15.
Not giving much territory.
At the baseline rallies, Hingis, in my view, is certainly Graf's equal.
30-50.
Which we couldn't have said when Hingis was either more of a puppy or perhaps carrying more puppy fat. Dropped 6 pounds prior to this tournament and is moving well.
40-50. Game Hingis.
She's a sort of mixture of Barbie doll and action girl. But she leads 2-1, first set.
Hingis leads 2 games to 1.
If Hingis were to win this match, if she were, she'd break into the top 10 for the first time. Just think of that. Pert and pretty, as we said yesterday, and not beyond a moment of pique either, just to continue the illustration.
Wide one way, wide the other before Hingis fully warmed up. So far keeping real good depth on her ground strokes. Hingis also playing down the middle quite a bit against Graf. Bit of wind.
The first double fault, been a couple of aces from Graf already, which suggests to me she's aware that she's got to press on the serve, and this is a break point.
Dieu.
simply marvellous.
Advantage Graf.
Amazing stuff.
Pity, because it was a nice idea. 2 games all, first set.
2 games all.
This lady thinks of tennis in terms of playmaking rather than stroke making. Here, not a very good drop shot, but always with the intent of trying for the pass, the 1-2 punch. Graf a little more the stroke maker, a little less the counterpuncher mentality. And it's what makes Graf seem brittle as a competitor, is her insistence on going for the winner or the loser.
See that?
14.
Just pointing it out. 15.
She knows how to patrol those lines,
Yeah,
Jerry.
15. Knows what it's all about. Tough little girl. Good for her.
Game Hingis.
She's not going to be intimidated, Martina Hingis. She leads 3-2 first set.
Hingis leads 3 games to 2.
What I find most impressive about Hingis is that ever since she was a toothpick, tiny tot, at age 10, playing against 14-year-olds with much more meat and height, she was, as Hingis was, thinking in terms of playmaking, thinking in terms of ways of neutralizing her opponent. Tennis has always been, for Martina Hingis, a dialogue. For Steffi, more a monologue.
It's an interesting point, and you and I have debated before this. What I find curious thing about Graf is that, considering she's one of the great athletes, one of the true pedigree thoroughbred champions of all time in the women's game, there is a basic insecurity in her that if you keep her playing a long point and she's hit about 4 heavy forehands and still hasn't hit a winner, she gets sort of edgy about it.
Wonders what to do. Yes, thinks one-dimensionally perhaps about how to win with her strength.
Time.
18 minutes gone, and so far the Barbara Potter weather forecast holds up.
Should have heard the weather forecast I got on the phone yesterday. 10 minutes long.
They knew it was to you.
Low.
That's nice.
Contrasted with Hingis's drop shot, Graf's hit with perfection in mind.
Hingis is going to have to scamper after an awful lot of drop shots in the next decade or so.
40 low.
Corner to corner, not choosing to come into the net, but bring Hingis into where perhaps Hingis is still growing as a player.
Game Graf.
Played that with some authority and weight, good Graf.
3 games all.
3 games all first set.
A little subtlety from the German in that game.
Wait, please. $15 love.
Because Hingis can't do the corner to corner with Graf, she is well advised to play balls such as the last backhand she hit up the middle.
30-15.
One of the beauties of Martina Hingis is her disguise, making Graf look a little hesitant or slow merely by the fact that Hingis can go either way at the last second.
Game Hingis, new ball.
She's standing her ground as Hingis, as we expected, I think.
Hingis
4-3.
leads 4 games to 3.
We were saying the other day of Martina Hingis that unlike Capriati, who seemed to assume baggage that in the end has proved her undoing, Hingis is quite serene on the court. She's doing okay here. Graf serving 3-4 first set.
15 left.
Bang.
Well, the strategy of drop-shotting Hingis working more consistently and more effectively so far for Steffi than Steffi's own attack to net. Oh dear.
40 low.
As deep as possible was Hingis's shot, which got no respect from Graf.
$40-15.
And the top spin of Hingis, slowing down the rhythm, indeed breaking it for Graf.
And now Graf's missed a couple of forehands. She doesn't like that. She turns away sharply with a snort. A few German tut-tuts. Here she's at deuce. 40 love here.
Advantage Hingis.
Indeed. Confirmation of the last call, last shot, but Hingis showing facility to get to net. Good low backhand approach earned her that forehand error.
Yep, well, that's a very telling moment and a huge cheer from the crowd. That's Martina's mother, Melanie Zog, who gave her the name Martina because she's a fan of Martina Navratilova. I think that said an awful lot about the psychology of this match. Hingis serving for the set without, I suggest, the weapon to be sure of finishing it off.
Love 15.
Hingis breaking 100 miles an hour on first serves this week, still has a second serve weakness.
And as you know, I think she's got a first serve weakness as well.
15.
Yes, it's predictable and doesn't move much either way, but certainly not the backhand, which is in the class of Chris Evert. Trying to mix the pace there and going for a little too much on the final forehand. It's the cross courts that get the top players out of trouble. It's the down the lines that put their opponents in so much of it.
Now, how was that called?
30-40.
No. Graf looking, I think, a little slow and a little brittle. I would call that late body preparation for that stroke. She'd normally be swooping all over it. Here, just sort of sticking out her arm.
Well, you see, now we're getting into the nerve game. If you can keep Graf back long enough, only a few players can do it. Sanchez can do it in certain conditions. Then she gets fidgety.
Granted, but also Steffi Graf has to face the fact that she's passing up short ball opportunities to get to net. At some point, she may decide she has to come in. And the power of the forehand and the angle of the forehand bailing Steffi out, because Hingis giving her not much to work with. Beautiful depth from the Swiss kid.
Advantage Graf.
Same linesman who gave a call against Martina in the first game. Let's have another look and see if that linesman should be fired summarily at dawn.
15, this girl.
Heidi Graf showing a touch of class, as this young lady does. Great versatility with her hands, great eyes, sees the ball early, scooped up a tough drop shot, stayed with an overhead winner. Not great technique, but good enough.
Oh.
Advantage Graf.
Over the top, kid.
She did exactly the right thing tactically. She got in position for the volley. Because she doesn't volley enough, she wasn't able to play all it needed, which was a fairly simple volley. But she was so close. Set point there. We've already called on Barbara Potter for some weather forecasting. Now we need her for a little medical prognosis.
Just the idea that maybe Steffi needs to keep not only the area warm below the knee, but perhaps to keep the kneecap, the patella, from floating downward, where it might cause a little bit of pain in a swollen area. That's my guess for the strapping below the knee. And the shirt out for the second time in this tournament. Every other time tucked in, but Kornikova and Hingis, perhaps it's the youth she's facing, wants to wear her armor more obviously. I have a feeling it's actually some strapping under the shirt to keep the warmth in her back, which is so very stiff at this end of her career.
4-5.
Love 50.
Well, I said Steffi wasn't so much a playmaker, but they're trying just about every play possible and coming up short because of the excellent movement and facility of Hingis.
And we saw a shot of the old hand in the 15-year-old there, going to get the towel and not hurrying back. Quick gasp of breath. I tell you, she knows how to play this game in more ways than one. And now, Hingis already had one set point.
Love 40.
She's got 3 more here.
Thank you.
Very lucky for Graf. This is an examination, incidentally, of Hingis's emotional containment, because, you know, having missed that set point before and then having had that bad luck, how does she cope with that emotionally? Beautifully, I think.
Staying in the present, we hope. So far, so good.
30-40.
Graf is being very lucky indeed, but perhaps with all the things going on in her life, it's you would hardly begrudge Steffi Graf a bit of luck at the moment.
Amen.
These are big girl points, these. This is at the very top.
So right you are, and Martina Hingis has been moving top-level stuff. She's only 5'6", but getting around to 5'9" shots like that from Steffi. Steffi having to win that basically 3 times.
Yes, Hingis again taking her time, walking very slowly back. She's had another go at the towel.
Semis in the mix, semis in the ladies. She's had a little bit of tennis here.
For the 5th time facing set point. It's tinkling stuff, isn't it?
It really is. Showing up all the historic fallibilities of the infallible Graf.
Even that hit the top of the tape. Away goes the racket. Generally, I'd say that if you persevere long enough, fate levels things out. But at the moment, it's taking a long time to do so for Martina Hingis. That's 5 set points she's had. And she's been very unfortunate.
That smile from Melanie Zog Hingis, very revealing of their lifelong friendship. No pressure coming from Mom other than for Martina to be a happy person.
Advantage Graf.
Martina Hingis' racket has a case of the jumping beans right out of her hand. Let's see if that emotional reaction regresses into a bit of a pout. So far, no pout from Hingis this tournament, playing as intelligently as she ever has in the juniors.
Really, it was another quite extraordinary game of most marvellous quality.
5 games all.
How is Hingis going to stand up to all this? Because everything's been stacked against her. Really, the set's hers.
So well has she neutralized the Graf power and moved. Once taking charge, almost reaped the fruits of it at the end of the last game. With a backhand volley into the net, though. I'd like to see Hingis take the aggression just a touch more. No sooner asked than done. This lady doesn't make one unconscious choice on the tennis court when she's thinking clearly. And that medium second serve, keeping Hingis out of trouble just enough. Graf's going to have to lift the level of her return.
Since Wimbledon, where Hingis said she didn't really feel she was as fit as she should have been, she's done a lot of running. And it's paying off now, or at least it might be paying off now, because I think she's tired, no question about that. And all this is sensible. Just take her time, get a few deep breaths in. She seems to have overcome her cross-patch moment.
Deuce. Advantage Graf.
Yeah, just a touch of fatigue coming in from Hingis. Needs to send a strong message back now. Good first serve down the middle.
Graf showing her pedigree there. And she moves in front 6-5, first set, having saved 5 set points.
6 games to 5.
You know, Barbara, sitting here and thinking back to the last 15-year-olds in the semi-finals of the US Open, Capriati and Jaeger, I tell you what, they weren't as streetwise, they weren't half as streetwise as Hingis is on the court.
Capriati more one-dimensional. Power from the baseline. Slug, 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 straight ahead. Hingis has the eyes, the hands, clay court training, and the disposition for dialogue tennis rather than this power tennis.
She's got real nous, says Hingis. Now Graf really ought to finish off this set here, 6-5 up. If she serves well, Hingis still breathing a bit heavily. Well,
Clearly Bad luck and a ton of set points playing on Hingis's mind.
She obviously knows that the
30.
what is now the time-honoured strategy against Graf is you hit deep to the backhand and come in. The trouble is she comes in into the forecourt so infrequently, other than to sort of shake hands, or if somebody hits a drop shot at her, she doesn't really know what to do when she gets there.
Yes, Hingis negotiated her way well at net a couple of times against Arantxa and Jana, but Graf's gotten under her skin.
That was down in the end to fitness and strength of character, but this most sporting of champions, I'll bet you, will be the first to say afterwards, I was lucky in that set. She certainly was. 7-5.
Yep. No question. Steffi takes score deficits as a challenge. Wasn't going to give it to Hingis.
The question now is, can Hingis recover her optimism, and how much has she been drained of energy?
Graf going for more at a time when she might just sit back and say she's got the set.
15.
The thing is, at the moment, giving a fair impersonation of Pete Sampras. She looks absolutely out on her feet. She's trying to get the points over quickly, too. Too quickly, it's not her game. But that's why, her exhaustion.
Thirty.
Yes, over here they'd call this a phenom against a legend, and at the moment the legend very firmly has the upper hand. Graf, 1-love. It's not just all the running that Hingis has had to do, and also it's not just all the frustration she's had with so much bad luck on the set points, but the humidity here is very high indeed. Perhaps not the heat, but the humidity we estimate here, we're sitting in an air-conditioned commentary box, might well be up in the 80s above. What do you think, Barbara?
Well, that's quite true, and the reason it is there's lots of dew condensing on the outside of our booth. Wouldn't happen if it were drier.
Now Graf will seek to impose further her authority here. 1-love and a set-up.
love the gesture that Hingis gives after this creased backhand down the line winner of sort of, why didn't I do that earlier? One of those set points. It has become a bit disjointed from Martina. Did so well to break serve to go up 5-3 in the first set. She did. And Graf, knowing that she won't break down the strength of Hingis, precision stuff. It's a good thing Hingis isn't the stature of a Venus Williams. That down the middle serve would have been gotten back with interest.
Game.
One game ball, second set. Should perhaps explain that Venus Williams is a 16-year-old American girl of whom great things are expected, but who is being kept under wraps very carefully by her father. So she just comes out and says peekaboo every now and again, and people go, oh, isn't she wonderful?
15.
Big hitter of the ball. Won't have the court censor timing of Hingis. Wish Martina had done one of those at the close of the first set.
That's good. A bit of a revival here by Hingis. 2-1 she leads.
Graf leads 2 games to 1.
After 1 hour, the most marvellous tennis. I'm not quite sure, Barbara, whether Hingis, who's 1-2 down and a set down, is now unveiling plan B or just getting a bit daring and fatalistic because there's no other way to rescue this situation.
Well, seemingly the latter in the first game on the last changeover, and then the former, a little more sensible aggression on her own serve to at least shadow Graf.
Graf 2-1.
Graf doing well with the serve wide to the Hingis forehand in the deuce court, opening up the court nicely. Martina Hingis rarely hitting beyond her own limits as a player. There doing so, has been sensibly lifting that ball a little bit more topspin, buying recovery time. A little bit all for broke there.
Love.
with Graf at a set 2-1 and 40 love. I would say against anybody else that Graf had broken her opponent's spirit, but then you have to keep telling yourself that Hingis is 15.
She might not have the sense to be broken yet.
Yeah.
Much more sizzling stuff from Hingis. You always felt when Everett played, consistent baseliner that she was, that it was an active will to be aggressive. Not so with Hingis.
Graf now stretches her lead to a set and 3-1 and looks very much like a winner now. But to say that it was touch and go at the end of the first set would be to put it mildly.
Couple let chords there. In your notes, you know exactly which
on
points.
Set points.
Love 50.
And again, the forehand showing signs of fatigue. Well, that's when you don't have the intent to serve and volley, but you know you've gotten your opponent in trouble. And you want your legs to cooperate with your eyes, but they are stuck in cement. And another big point for Hingis. In fact, two more coming up. Well, Hingis, had she fresher legs, would have had the sense to hoist the ball up a mile high in the sky, having done that well a couple times in this tournament already. .6-mile-an-hour serve. Again, her feet failing her, and then her intent failing her as a consequence.
Hingis played that point with much more calculation, the way she played the first set, not so much desperation. She might just be getting a second wind. Good volley at last, but that time was on the forehand. That's the difference, but listen to the crowd's reaction to that. Hingis is persevering.
Graf leads 3-2.
After all the frustrations of last night, when the United States Tennis Association once again showed they have an infinite capacity for messing things up, this has been wonderful. It's been worth waiting for.
We've been salivating for about 24 to 36 hours, finally getting stuck into a match where the world #1, we almost thought there was no point in Steffi playing Martina Hingis. The announcer announced every blooming title in history to Graf. We thought, poor Martina, she has to warm up an entire warm-up with all those accolades. But here, almost having won the first set, shadowing Graf well in the second. Such is the coordination of this young lady, taking a one-handed backhand drive when two normally will do. And an aggressive forehand return from Hingis. That's the Super Mac, not a super slow-mo because it's about 700 more frames per second, which allows the velocity of the ball virtually to be stilled. Umpire can't use that machine to their own advantage yet, but we'll get some real-time effect from that technology soon. And having exploited Graf's backhand exploited her. Chess match again.
Oh, what she found out then, the young Hingis, going on Sweet 16, is that it works, that tactic. Everyone else says it works. It does work. Trouble is, not many believe it. Not many can actually work to it.
So interesting to see Graf a little hesitant on the add-in point. Hingis a little over-ambitious on the deuce. Knowing her opening. Aim that thing a little further inside, you turkey. Nice mix of pace there, looping the forehand, drawing Graf in after 2 bludgeoned backhands by Hingis.
Advantage Graf.
Graf screaming at herself.
Hingis turns away. I tell you, she is a tough little nut.
Due.
And again, a nicely top-spun cross-court, not giving Graf the power to sort of deflect or reflect back, forcing Graf to come up with pace and precision. Class act. Hingis handling short balls well. Of course, that approach shot landing short enough for Graf to dominate. Coming attraction, Hingis's movement at net.
Terrific point. That's the 4th time incidentally the Graf has been within a point of putting her away in this game and moving to a set and 4-2. The crowd called that out in the middle of the rally. I'm not sure they were right. Might just have touched the outside edge.
Yes, well, we do have the advantage of this camera. Mortal eyes might well have seen that long. Winning that point perhaps twice. Well, not really. Once, but what a point. Survival there. Well, a lapse from Martina, whom I've come to expect to move forward on almost everything, taking the ball at exactly the right height on the rise, letting that ball play her. Well, the efficiency of Hingis's footwork is great as Everett's ever was. Getting that left foot right out behind the bounce. Hips rotating in cleanly. Beautiful.
Advantage Graf.
You just get the feeling that Graf, for the 6th time here with game point.
If she could just hang in one more time and add in rather for Graf.
That's right. Well, there you are, 4-2 it is. It may just be the key game that finally breaks Hingis' spirit. But I keep finding myself wanting to put this match in context. This is a match between a 27-year-old and a 15-year-old. It's between a real rookie against a girl who's won this title alone 4 times.
On paper, she's a rookie, but she ain't no rookie, Jerry. She's seen a lot of balls.
Love 15.
And made the most of every one of them. What's more, she looks like she came out of the cradle with her backhand. Not one to be outshone. That was a feast of shot-making wind and not quite the strength, speed, or technique for the overhead challenge there. But wow, Hingis facile in all areas of the court and can grow to be quite a net player.
There you are. Just wanted to underline that you knew what you were talking about, Barbara.
It's the nonchalant, I mean, this is a playmaker shot, because that really isn't a good shot, but it surprised Graf enough to get the high reply. The 1-2 punch, not just the one punch. Except occasionally.
Hingis stopped smiling about half an hour ago, but that's okay. She's still playing a wonderful match. 4-3 Graf. A set and 4-3 Graf, and Martina Hingis simply refuses to be put in her place by the champion. I said that Graf has won this title 4 times. She's won the Australian Open 4 times. She's won the French 5 times, and Wimbledon 7 times, which is too short of only Martina Navratilova, and yet Martina Hingis, who won't be 16 till the last day of this month, is playing, I think, a simply mountainous match against her. I feel, Barbara, that Hingis has foundationally the game of a true Grand Slam champion. But I say foundationally, I think there are lots of bits and pieces missing, particularly a serve.
Yes, I'd say first and foremost a serve. And then perhaps the movement around the net, which will only improve with experience and strength. With the serve, the overhead, perhaps. But arguably, the most talented eye-hand coordination and movement, natural movement of any player on tour today. Tracy Austin likened Hingis to Goolagong. I just want to break away from Hingis for a moment. We've got nearly a 3 or 4 minute break of play that puts the spectators off and the television off and me off. What's happened is Hingis went for a change of shirt, I believe, and Graf took full advantage of it, gathered up all her week's washing, apparently, from her coach Heinz Gunthard on the sideline, and went off to do the same. In fact, a whole new outfit for Graf. Hingis yet to be seen. This shirt change allowance, now made by the rules, might be called the Barbara Potter rule, but it hardly suits me. I think that the players really should be making a shorter break closer to the court.
Why the Barbara Potter rule?
Why the Barbara Potter rule?
Did you do it famously?
Infamously.
At Wimbledon?
I did.
I think I remember.
Ineptly, probably. Is
Very
the better word.
attractive.
Point penalties I got, that was no good, so rules did need to be bent a little, but this importunes the viewer, the spectator, and I think the players can get on with it a little more quickly. As a matter of fact, I remember a colleague, David Lloyd, saying something about the bathroom break at Wimbledon for Chang, saying, Blatters must have got smaller since I played this game.
Is Martina, I've said 2 or 3 times that Hingis is streetwise, to put it mildly, but she has so much now, so I'm amazed. I mean, you know, is this a bit of smart stuff, this?
Very much so. Chess game here, and also with Hingis running down the Graf power, trying to neutralize the Graf power, mixing the pace and the height of the ball.
But I was thinking more about her going off now.
Yes, right. No question that Hingis can benefit from a longer change of ends. No question about it. It's within the rules, Jerry. So it's not to be a finger-pointing thing at Hingis. Graf has taken full advantage of it. Shirt, skirt. Now the shirt's tucked in. Perhaps that's because she's a set. And 4-3 up. Serving. Incredible champion, Steffi. She knows this is one of the defining moments for her, despite it being only a semi-final round.
She probably wants to know too at this moment, which is, if we could hear her, she's probably asking Donna Butler, the Australian umpire, whether this isn't a rather overlong break here by Hingis.
It does tax an older player a little more to cool off than a younger player. No worries about any coaching for Martina, because umpires are with these players throughout their break from the court. They're drinking a carbohydrate electrolyte type drink given by the trainers as they mix this powdered substance with water to go on court. So really no cheating at hand, but a lot of inconvenience in my opinion.
An hour and a half, less a couple of minutes. It's been riveting stuff. Graf's are set up and 4-3 in serving.
Given the way female runners dress these days, would it really be socially incorrect to change skirts on the court? I wonder.
Yes.
Well, that was quite a replay. Hingis hitting one pass to get the next, though. Typical playmaking. While standing her ground on the previous return so very well, Hingis moving in the wrong direction to intercept that powerful Graf serve. One chance missed.
40-30.
Is it just a little bit like Graf against Sellers in the final here last year, when Graf just about squeezed through a magnificent first set and then really started to move away?
Well, to my way of thinking, Graf losing that middle set, love 6. Graf was even really lucky to move away from Selish in the final set. But no, I think Hingis has shadowed Graf well, and deservedly so, because she always had the capacity to rally from the baseline, in this tournament at least. Yeah, a smile to win a few hearts, but this, a common sense shot on the stretch. Didn't see that from Martina Hingis in the outset of this set, and it may just have cost her the match because, of course, she is trailing a service break.
Set 5-3.
Graf leads 5-3.
All in all, Graf getting what she wants from the Hingis forehand. Faced a fair bit of flack from Hingis's backhand in this set. So beautifully precise at 2-4, 15-40 down was Hingis.
Love 15.
Look at Hingis's position inside the baseline to take that short bouncing ball.
Love 30.
Well, just when you say stick a fork in her, she's done. Hingis has come out of some scraps in her service games. Let's see if she can do it here.
Three match points to Graf.
Love 40. Thank you. Game is
An hour and 33 minutes. It was really, in the end, I think, all about the first set, for which the 15-year-old miraculously had 5 set points and was very unlucky on 2 of those points. In the end, of course, Graf looked like the champion she is. I think Hingis is a champion tomorrow. But we're now down to another final. Graf against Sellers, yum yum. To quote that literary giant of American sport, Yogi Berra, I guess we're back to the deja vu.
Gotta love it. And we salivated over this encounter, but perhaps wanted Graf to come through to this encounter with Selish in the final. Last year I was rooting for Graf. This year I'm rooting for Selish. But we've all been rooting for Hingis because she really has sparkled up this tournament. And, well, may she long come back.
And in a word, Hingis can go all the way, yes?
Future champion, as you're right, she needs a serve.